Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
He's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. This is the 70th episode of we've done of these, Chris.
We're getting old.
We are getting up there for sure. How we doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I mean, just it's a busy. I say this often, but this is a lot of things happen at the same time right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we just kind of bullet point it real quick, Tech football has made a hire.
Yep.
Basketball is really. I mean, there's 6 regular season games left, folks. I mean, you got 3 weeks left of the regular season, and
That's
bubble
nuts.
talk. Yeah, bubble talk is now like. It's going to live and die with each result and all those things for the teams that are in that and all that. And obviously Coach Tadlock's team gets going. The NFL Combine is upcoming. We had some folks announced for that bad boy recently from the Red Raider camp, Tyler Owens and Dadrion Taylor Demerson and Miles Cole, and I think Austin McNamara are going to get to be a part of that at the specialist combine too. So, anyways, it's like this vortex of like all the sports, which I'm here for it, man.
Vortex of sports sounds like a fun place to be for sure.
Yeah, it's like a sports fountain, and we're all drinking from it, right? Okay,
that'll work too. Yeah, yeah, it is. And
where I was this weekend, I can just tell you where I was this past weekend. I know you were in Arlington, you were indoors. I was indoors most of the time in Ames, but man, screw that place. I wake up and like I just search for the degrees. Like I don't know what a degree looks like. Not a diploma type degree, but like I want to stash them in my pocket, and like when I get to Ames, I can like use them and like let them free up there because it was all of 8 degrees. When I woke up on game day over the weekend, and my phone says feels like -2. I'm like, no, it feels like it makes me want to say bad things, but I don't know how people up there do it, man. It's just like I don't know how. It's ridiculous, is what it is. And you know what? And feel free, Iowans, to tell me that I am not tough. I concur. Okay, I don't disagree with you. I don't like it. I would invite you to come down and enjoy some 100-degree temps for 60 to 90 days on end and see how you hold up, because I'm going to handle it like a champ. But I'm just saying, like your little 0-degree type temps, man. I've had it. I mean, and if there's a store where I can buy degrees and then take them with me to Ames when we go up there in early November, I will do such things. But I need to, you need to turn me on to. Sorry for the rant, Woodman.
Oh man, I'm loving it. I actually, I'm sitting here thinking, man, you were indoors most of the time, and you get that road trip this year again to stand on the sidelines. So,
yeah.
So I'm gonna start praying for you right now that we get, like a 50-degree game there, just in early November. That's what we're hoping for.
All right.
I doubt it's gonna happen. So yeah, a road trip to Iowa. I think it went as a lot of people thought it would. This was maybe when you take a look back after the season, this might end up being your second toughest game on the schedule altogether, outside of the road trip to Houston. I mean, this is, I mean, the Hilton Magic, all the cliches that go with it, but this is a really good basketball team in Iowa State, and you just dug a hole too much. Obviously, playing without Warren Washington hurts big time. This one characteristic we've seen of this basketball team is it doesn't go away, and you ended up with an 8-point margin at the end of the game, but just too much to overcome from what was the max it got to? 21 points, 22.
Yeah, you were largest lead was 21 with like 11 to go in the
Yeah.
second half, and you were on the verge of getting run out of there,
Yeah.
which you did last year, 84 to
Mhm.
50. And
Yeah.
Hilton Magic hadn't really been prevalent for the Red Raiders up there in a many years, because you won a Big 12 championship in 19 up there. The
Yeah.
next year you go up there and you win by 30 in the COVID year, by 30. The next year you go back and you win by 27.
Man.
And then the year after that, which was 2 years ago, you go up there with 6 players, KJ Allen playing like 25 minutes, and you lose by 4.
Yeah.
And last year was you just got boat raced, and it was kind of a rock bottom moment for your team. But it's been
Sure.
funny because I do have a healthy respect for that building and all that, but you've just been on now granted, Steve Prohm, it kind of bottomed out, and then
Yeah.
TJ Altenberger had kind of taken it over, so you kind of hit it, and you're in your little sweet spot there with some of those results at the tail end of one head coach and then the beginning of another. And you don't, last year you lost by 30 up there, or 34, and then you came back like a couple of weeks later and beat them in overtime. Go figure.
Yeah.
You're not going to get another chance to beat these guys, at least in the regular season. And I'd be okay if you don't see them anymore. Like after being at Houston it's just funny because you felt like you caught a break by no Kansas, or trips to Kansas State, or I don't know, it's the way some of the scheduling worked out. It turns out you had to play at the 2 best teams in the conference,
Yeah.
at Houston and Iowa State. So they have the best home records. They are the 2 teams that are going to fight it out early this week for uh, first place in the league with not many games left. And you don't get return trips from either, so get a chance to redeem yourself. So you just never know how these things are going to work. And at this point right now, I'd kind of like a shot to go up to Manhattan, Kansas, and play a game. If to trade, can we trade like that's like a thing.
Yeah.
Like the trade deadline, it's like you have like a scheduling trade deadline. Hey man, we got 2 trips to Kansas over the next couple of years. We'll give you a home game versus Tennessee. Just kind of like swapping with the
I like that
schedules.
idea. That's kind
Yeah.
of a novel idea. So, well, if you could do that, I'm going way off the rails here. If you could do that for the football schedule next year,
Oh yeah.
if you got to trade any single game, but you have to keep it home or away if it is home or away. If you could trade out any
I'd
game
like to so flip it.
so no, you got to keep it, like if it's a home game, it's got to stay a home game. If it's a away game, so say like you're trying to trade out any game on the schedule for a team you don't play in the Big 12 this year, who would you trade out?
Do you have an idea in mind?
So
So in
uh,
other words, what you're saying is if
like I would get rid of no, I wouldn't get rid of Oklahoma State.
the Arizona game.
Oh, the Iowa State game. That's the one I would say. Like
Well, okay.
get rid of that and give me a road trip to.
I'd like to go to BYU again
Yeah, I think I'd take
for a
that shot
variety of
again.
reasons. One, I didn't get a maple bar thingy at Cougar Tail.
We had one for you.
Yeah, well, all I heard during the broadcast was like, I mean, holy sure are good. I mean, it's like I just,
And they had the bacon on them that day. It was so good.
y'all got special ones. I never even
Yeah.
got one. Period.
Yeah.
It gives me the sads.
The sads.
But I would love to go up there and pop those guys,
Yeah.
because I think you were better than them when healthy last year. You just you would hopefully go up there without an 18-year-old trying to start his first game. So yeah. Anyway, and the weather was decent. It cooperated.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
So and I got to tell you too, selfishly, I liked watching Cosmo perform and all the
that was pretty cool.
individuals that the fire twirling and we did the Michael Jackson routine. We've all got he's many characters playing Cosmo, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that is the most talented, like under the radar superhero type person I've ever seen.
A superhero type person.
Yeah, I mean it's like
yeah. I got you. So if you could trade out any game, what would you
I
do
wouldn't go to
football-wise?
Arizona. That's where I
Okay.
would say I think they may be the best team on paper, and it's early enough to where if you were to go to somewhere different, I think you could potentially keep all the home game momentum going early? Because really, that's your first.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to go to Washington State, but anyway, it's an interesting question. Actually, it's kind of a fun way to look at it, I
You
guess.
brought it up. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
yeah.
So back to the basketball. You've got you have any more thoughts on Iowa State before we move on and look ahead towards this week?
Well, they played about I guess the way you phrase it is they played 30 minutes of
Mm-hmm.
bad-ish basketball, like not winning, especially at the level that you need to play at there. And then I think the last 5 to 10 minutes, I thought this was the team that we had seen most nights. It's funny because I said something to Grant after the game when I was doing the interview, and I said it's an impossible task in my spot sometimes, because you ask something that could be construed as negative. It's not a good look. You ask something when the coach is really frustrated that's potentially too positive. It's like it can be frustrating, which was
Mm-hmm.
the case here. I'm like, Coach, this is a very good team, tough place to play, but to your credit, to your kids' credit, they never gave up. That this one was really close at the end. And he hit me with, he wasn't angry or anything, but he just hit me with, well, Chris, as you know, we didn't come here to play it close. I'm like, yes, sir, that's fair. And I'm like, damn. I mean, it's just like, but I mean, and agreed. They're not into that. They're not worried about, oh man, we almost covered the point spread or whatever. They
Sure.
just the stat that you could just put it in Sharpie, highlight it, put it on the board. Really the end. Points off of turnovers in this game was 28-0.
Yep.
And
That's
much of that
unreal.
was in the first half. It's crazy. Because it wasn't, because you only turn it over. You turn it over 16 times, which is way higher than normal. Because you're averaging 11 or 12 a game, so it's not that much higher. But it's what they do with them.
Yeah.
This isn't Iowa State's not an elite 3-point shooting team. They just are aggressive. They want to speed you up. They've got guys that anticipate and get into gaps. It's a really good basketball team. Now, having said that, I bet Houston pops them right in the mouth and gives them some payback. I can't wait to watch that encounter early this week. Not sure when people will be listening to that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Is a battle for first place, but the Iowa State's a really good team. TJ Otzelberger has his team with an identity, and they've playing to that identity and all those things. So no shame in going up there and losing, especially without your big fella. But to your Robert Jennings and Kyron Lindsey's credit,
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: they totaled more than what Warren would have given you had he played a phenomenal game. So, and that's why this game was close. 19, 9, and 2 blocks is what Robert Jennings and Kyron Lindsey gave you combined. I think that's pretty impressive for asking that duo to carry all the post minutes in Waco and in Iowa State. And to their credit, those games have been close. I know, Coach, we didn't come here to play it close, but you didn't get run out of there, and it's really a credit to those two kids for not just getting destroyed inside and holding their own. So that will potentially pay dividends in the coming weeks if Warren were to get into foul trouble or whatever. So anyway, but
Yeah,
that's my thoughts there.
I thought the numbers on this game were fascinating, and you pointed out a lot of those. But the fact that you get that kind of production out of those two guys tells you the story of how this game was so close. But it's also still amazing that it was that close when you were 28-0 in points off turnovers. That's unreal that it's even inside of 10 points with that.
Never seen anything like that. Well,
That's,
because you make 18 free throws, you made 8 threes.
Yeah.
You just didn't make enough threes early. And
True.
that Iowa State never got uncomfortable. They kind of kept you at arm's length most of the game. You kind of made it interesting, very down the stretch. And Darren George didn't like Grant McCaslin, rightfully calling out a non-call on one end, and then your guy getting destroyed on the other. So that technical kind of factors into it a little bit too, as you were trying to make a comeback. But anyways, it was a good environment. You don't have to go back up there anymore. Everybody else can deal with Iowa State now. And now you have three. That was your really last toughest road game on paper.
Agreed.
Now you
Yep.
go to three places remaining. I mean, you theoretically could go 6-0 to finish this thing up. Do I think that will happen? No. But I mean, it's not out of the realm that you can go win in Orlando or Stillwater or Morgantown. Again,
Yeah.
not going to be easy to get any of those, but those three teams really on paper have the three lowest net rankings, the three lowest conference records. I mean, all that stuff. But you may also be getting their best shot because it's like they're scratching and clawing and have to hold
True.
serve. They don't have
Yeah.
a choice. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think let's go there next. Looking ahead as a whole on the schedule, Andrew asked, "Can we get to 12-6 in conference play?" And then the other part is, what is a fair expectation over these next 6 games?
Well, earlier this week you've got TCU coming in here, and like it's sitting there, we're talking about going. You could go 6-0. I mean, TCU could come in here and beat you.
That's true. Yeah.
It's a bad matchup for you. TCU is bigger than you pretty much at every position across the board. If somebody like Micah Peavy were to get hot, it's just it creates a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, you need a big time crowd. And you need a result here to have a chance to really, I think, push through. Because you're not out. I think most people are going to suggest, and probably rightfully so at this point. But think about it in these terms: you're not if you with a 6-0, 5-1, maybe a 4-2 finish in your last six, you could easily get a first round bye in the conference tournament.
Yeah.
To where you don't show up and you don't have to play until Thursday. Because you think Iowa State and Kansas, Iowa State and Houston are going to get those first two, and then I think Baylor and Kansas are right there, but so is Texas Tech. You're just going to have to finish it up strong because only 4 teams get a bye. But TCU, they're the third oldest team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They have the best road record of anybody in the Big 12. They've won 3 road conference games. They've won 2 road games otherwise in the non-conference. I think they're 5-3 on the road, and it's just a tough matchup. It's going to be very difficult. But yeah, I mean, and you just don't know where some of these teams' heads are at. The Central Florida, by the time you get there this weekend, do they just go, dude, we're ready for the beach, man? Where's the line for Space Mountain? Point me in that direction, man. We tried. The win over Kansas, like what feels like to them probably 6 months ago, was great, but
True.
it's just too hard. Cincinnati rolled in there over the weekend, I think, and won.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know what you in like West Virginia, Josh. Like, here's the thing: those last 2 road games, those are going to be against 2 teams. Their coaches are essentially, I say that potentially, essentially something like out the door, a lot of hot seat. One of them is an interim. You're just not real sure.
Yeah.
That may mean you get those teams' best scratch and claw efforts ever, or you may get teams that are like, man,
checked out.
Yeah, you just don't know, and that's worth mentioning because it makes it a bit scary for you,
So, if you're putting a number on it, what do you think's a fair expectation?
4-2
Is yeah,
out of
okay.
the final 6, 4-2.
That's kind of what
I think you can win. My guess is you win either all home games and 1 road, or you win a couple of home games and then, because I mean, think about it, Woodman.
Yeah.
Like TCU, Texas, and Baylor. Okay, yeah, Texas is kind of faltering here, but TCU and Baylor are a problem.
Yeah.
Especially and like we want to assume that Warren will be back here pretty quick. I think that's the assumption. That's what I'm operating under. But any less than, and it alters the scenario here.
Sure does.
So,
Yeah.
but like I think right now you are. I think most bracket projections have you like in the 5, 6, 7 seed range, which is pretty. It's shocking to me that I think there was some thought that you weren't even going to make the tournament and that you just hope to be competitive this year. And here you may be like a 5, 6, or 7 seed, dealing with all the injuries that you've dealt with at a first-year head coach. It's really a credit to what Grant's been able to do.
Yeah, and if this team is able to finish inside the top 3 of this league, you got to think your seed could be as high as a 3 or 4 seed. The third seed or the third best team in the best conference in the league, it wouldn't be out of the question to get a 3 or 4 seed.
And that's going to require a 5-1 finish
I would think
or
so.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'll have to go 12-6 in the league to be able to have a chance at that, in my opinion. But anyway, pretty fascinating stuff. Like
It is.
I saw the Big 12 tournament projected bracket if the season were to end today, and I love all the things that the Big 12 is doing now. They're
Yeah.
pushing a lot more content out, trying to generate more interest,
Absolutely.
but it was if the season were to end today, you would be playing at 8:30 on Wednesday night. You would be the 6th seed,
Mhm.
and you would play the winner of, I think, Kansas State and West Virginia, who would play the day before. Because this conference tournament is going to start on a Tuesday now. You got 2 games on a
That's
Tuesday.
crazy.
Yeah, and then and next year, I think I think
It's even bigger. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm here for it. It's yeah, set up shop in the Sprint Center all week and enjoy about every flavor of nachos you can for a week straight and watch some hoops.
Yeah, no doubt. You kind of answered this question. This is from old Texas Tech fan on YouTube, but Warren Washington, do we have an update on him?
Well, I think thankfully it was not a break or a tear, no season ending. I think Grant, indicated before the Iowa State game, look, he's trending to be able to potentially play. They announced about an hour before the game, okay, he's not going to play. I think they're thinking big picture there. Like, let's not put him in harm's way. Let's get him right, give it some rest. He was wearing a boot, all those things, and which is precautionary. But I
Sure.
think it's like a sprained big toe type scenario, is
Yeah.
what I gather. Um, met met Warren's dad recently. Super nice guy. I think Warren has been as advertised with what
Sure.
not any savior, but just played his role, played it extremely well, been very consistent, blocking shots and altering shots, rebounding and scoring, and being a lob threat, and all the things that he offers up. And so, yeah, you desperately need him back, but yeah, you should get him back very, very soon. Like I said, you dodged a major bullet there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
'cause
Quick.
I had it flash before my eyes whenever I saw what he was saying, and I'm like,
Yeah. Oh,
please
yeah.
no, why can't we have nice things? But
So, quick preview of what you've got ahead this week. You already talked about the TCU matchup a little bit. This may be the biggest swing game for Texas Tech the whole year in terms of how you're going to finish the season. And then you've got a road trip to Orlando, where Level's going to be sunbathing quite a bit.
yeah, well, I mean, we'll barely be there. I can tell you this: I'll be doing something that I wasn't doing in Ames, which is maybe standing outside. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you talk about opposite ends of the spectrum here.
No kidding.
Yeah, but yeah, and I'm kind of curious to see the campus at
Sure.
Central Florida. I've heard interesting things. I know it's a massive, undergrad enrollment and all those
Hmm.
things, and it's been interesting to see some of the new places. I guess Cincinnati is going to end up being the only one that I haven't seen of the new additions.
Yeah.
I guess after this cycle of football and basketball for me, I won't have been on Cincinnati's campus, but yeah, but I'm looking forward to it, and it is a winnable game. I mean, and they've won plenty of home games too. So it's not like you go into any of these road games going, yeah, we got to chalk that up. I mean, I don't care who it is. So you just have to be careful. If you don't play your best, you're going to get hit in the mouth. And Central Florida, as we saw when they were in Lubbock a week or so ago, that's all they are, is just physicality and punch you in the mouth. And they just try to muddy it up and get a ball up on the rim and go get it, and then defend like crazy and just make you,
Yeah.
work and grind for everything you get. And luckily in Lubbock, you were able to do that, but it wasn't easy for you. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think this week you probably have two of the 3 toughest games remaining on your schedule. I think this is probably your your toughest road trip you have left.
Yeah,
Well,
Baylor
I mean,
belongs
West
on that
Virginia is
list.
always tough, but
It is, and
but
so is Stillwater for that matter. But
as
I
far
get
as
what
a
you're saying
team
on
going,
paper. Yeah,
yeah, team's tougher than those two, and then TCU, like you said, just matchup based. It's a really difficult one for Tech there.
TCU's a team that's going to cause some problems in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
Just because I think at times this year they've gotten bored. I think that they're again third oldest team in the country based on games started, age, all this stuff. I think they've like their starters or their group has scored like over 8,000 points in college.
yeah,
I mean, it's wild how much. So it's going to be. I mean, after the season ends, whenever it does for TCU, Jamie Dixon's going to be like, "Okay, boys, time to go get us a new team," because they're almost all leaving
sure.
of their 10-man rotation. But yeah, right now, man, it's a problem, and that's who's you got staring you in the face.
Okay, so switching, we're running out of time a little bit, so I want to talk a little football because you mentioned earlier Clay McGuire comes back to Texas Tech for his third stint, I believe, with the Red Raiders, and this is to to take over the offensive line coaching position. One question we did have, or it's kind of a statement question, says, Level, it seems like we've kind of treaded water at the offense on the offensive line for almost the last 10 years. Is this a coaching hire that can help us develop players?
Well, Clay's got a lot of years in this business at this position. He's done it at USC, at Texas State, Washington State, multiple stints, and then Texas Tech in a variety of roles. Um, he was college roommates with the guy whose name is on the field now, and Cody Campbell, who's a regent and donated a bunch of money. So he certainly has relationships here that matter, and he's one of you kind of thing, just like Hamby was.
Sure.
But you're right. That's been a problem position for the last decade, and there's been not much. It's either been you've had good players that have come through here. I mean, you just think about like you've got some guys that are in the NFL, like the LaRaven Clarks, the Jack Andersons, the I'm trying to think of who else has been in the last like decade ish of guys that Terrence Steele. I mean, so it's not like you haven't had just talent, but sustaining it, developing it, recruiting, more of a hit rate on the recruiting process. And then I think what we're seeing right now is that what's gotten you in the last couple of 3 years is that the portal is trickiest with this position group more so than most.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is fascinating is that, like Monroe Mills leaving, Jacoby Jackson leaving.
Yep.
So you've got a couple of pieces that you're like, okay, they're not like all world, but they're serviceable, and then they leave. And so we got to go find them, replacement for them. And so that part is but I love your younger classes. You just have got to have time for them to grow up and then hold on to them. And again, maybe we're asking for too much here, but everybody around the country is like, man, we're going to be just fine if we can be good up front. And and you're in the same boat. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely seems that way. It's always, it starts in the trenches, and that's where I think the biggest question marks are for most teams coming into any given season. But this is it's obvious hire on paper that looks really good, and I think a lot of people like that. But we'll see what happens when football season rolls around. Um,
Yeah, he's gonna be drinking from a fire hose, though.
yeah,
And that I don't know what effect like you having a new offensive line coach in mid to late February is going to have, because he's got to learn everything from personnel, positioning within that personnel scheme. What is Zach wanting to do? Play calling, schematics, tempo. I mean, it's a lot.
yeah,
It is a lot, and these days and hours that have these are important. So Clay, when I texted him last week, I'm like, man, you need to be here yesterday. So he just kind of sent back a smiling face or whatever. But yeah, so and I wouldn't be surprised, just in a weird dynamic. We'll see where Stepen Hami ends up, but I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up replacing Clay McGuire at
Up there,
Washington State. Yeah,
that'd be a weird
there's some
coaching
mutual
trade.
relationships there.
Yeah.
And then also not going to be surprised, he's very tight with Eric Morris. If he ends up doing something for Texas, North Texas too. So
Yeah.
we'll just kind of see what happens to Hamby, another guy that I think a lot of, and that was one of us and was snapping at the Graham Harrell back in the day, man, and
Yeah.
was part of one of the best offensive line in your program's history, so.
Yeah. It's the offensive line is going to be, I think, a main focal point for most fans going in to the 2024 season. Speaking of, when do you have the exact date when spring football starts, or do you remember off the top of your head? It's right around the corner, isn't it?
It's I believe, Woodman, it's after spring break, so
Okay.
you've got a ways.
Okay, so still over a month.
And I'm glad now that you have that. I think that's probably a good thing, that if anything, it gives Clay more time
Sure.
to adjust before those practices start. Instead of it just starting next week, or something, and give him more time to acclimate, because they don't finish up until April the 20th.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like two Saturdays after the Final Four, I think, is when
Yeah.
spring football ends up. So they pushed it about, I mean, fairly close to the end of the semester, which I kind of like it that way. It means less gap. It's less gap, in the summer. They also will tell you the one downside is if somebody were to get dinged up, in spring, it's less time for them to get healed up if something bad were to happen. But half a dozen to one, half a dozen the other.
There was one baseball question in
Yeah, and you
the
saw that.
email.
Yeah, over the weekend. What were they like? 1-5 entering Globe Life in
Yeah.
the previous 6 games, and then you come out 2-1 over the weekend with more to go this week.
Yeah, I think and the Big 12 had a really rough start to the weekend, and then Tech won to turn that around against Nebraska, and then ended up being a pretty good weekend overall. The question was just, do you have any takeaways from the weekend? Pretty generic, but it was just I think you don't want to overreact to anything in the sport of baseball, especially because it's such a long season. But I think it went almost exactly how I would have guessed. You played the number 9 team in the country in Tennessee the opening day, and that is a tough task, especially with the pitcher they rolled out there in game 1. If you would have played them in game 2 or 3, I think the chances would have been better. But you go 2-1. Oregon is a fringe top 25 team, so that was a good win on Sunday. I think this team is still going to be really talented, and you see some young talent. So everything
And
I
where
take.
is it Max Huffman?
Huffling, yeah.
Huffling, sorry,
Yeah.
my bad.
No, you're
My
good.
bad.
You're good.
6'9", huh? Where they've been hiding this cat?
Abilene Christian is where they hit him. You
Sheesh.
took him away from He beat up on Texas Tech for ACU the last 2 years, and then
Well, last year it was like he threw 5 no-hit inning or no shutout, no hit, right?
yeah,
In that
and
delayed game, yeah.
you just had him stashed away there, and had a good finish to the game against Oregon. So yeah, just 3 games in, but a lot of baseball still to be played. Depending on when you're listening to this, Tech plays 2 more games in Arlington this week, Tuesday and Wednesday against UTA and Oregon State, who is a highly ranked team. So you need to get another good test on Wednesday, and then 3 at home for the weekend. So that was
Yeah. I mean, this is
all here.
why, this is partly why, like, I'm glad spring football kind of has a delayed start, so you can kind of process all of this stuff
Oh,
going
man.
on right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's hard too to get too into like February baseball.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably how I guess some people feel like whenever college basketball gets going in November, you're like, dude,
Sure.
football is just heating up. Like these games,
Yeah, you start to ease in.
yeah, you ease in, and so that's kind of where we are here. But much like the college basketball season, you get so many heavyweight type matchups early, and it kind of gets just lost
Yeah.
in the shuffle a bit. And this deal at Globe Life, it wasn't even, what was it, on Flow Sports?
I know
You
that's
even
the
see it.
worst
Like,
thing.
what are we doing, man?
I,
Like,
you know, with the new ESPN contract that they signed a month ago or so that has some of the third tier type of stuff. I'm hoping that you do away with this flow sports stuff and more of these type of early college baseball matchups end up on ESPN Plus.
well,
So,
and the problem is that these aren't anybody's home games. This is
right.
an MTE.
Yep.
So somebody really smart and like that runs all those college basketball tournaments and
Yeah.
God all over the place. They need to
Exactly.
they need to kind of work together and kind of create a bit of a cottage industry and some
Because Flow Sports has had those basketball games at times for
oh yeah,
tag
when you go to
down
the Bahamas
and
yeah,
and people have to pay $30 for a weekend to watch some hoops. So yeah, it's frustrating at times. But hey, compared to what it used to be, I remember in 2002 trying. I mean, they didn't even have the Texas Tech Texas A&M game on television. I'm sitting there listening to it, trying to find a good radio signal just to take in Wes Welker running that punt back for a touchdown. So times have changed a little bit.
Yes, they have.
Level, appreciate your time as usual. We'll do this again next week after your sunny trip to Orlando.
Yeah, and maybe the temperature will be about the number of podcasts we will have done. What is it, 71 next week?
71 next week.
Yeah,
That's
see,
right.
there you go. Yeah, so some synergy there.
There you go.
Yeah, I like it. Hey, Woodman, appreciate the time. Keep hope alive, everybody. Hope to see everybody at the arena on Tuesday night or a week from Tuesday night when Texas makes their very last trip to Lubbock, Texas. So that is approaching rapidly. So
Yes.
anyways, but appreciate everybody for watching this and being a part of this. Thank you to Cantex Roofing and appreciate you, Woodman. We'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. It's been the Ask Level podcast here on Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.